Shabbat Shalom. It's quite a day. Today, our country inaugurated its 45th president. Tomorrow, tens, maybe hundreds of thousands will join women's marches around the country. There can be no doubt that the political climate in our nation remains divisive and turbulent despite a peaceful transfer of power, which we can be grateful for at the very least. But somehow in difficult times, our Torah always seems to know at least one right thing to say. And this week is no different. This Shabbat we read Shemot, the first portion of the book of Exodus. And the portion as a whole contains a ton of action. The descendants of Jacob, the children of Israel, are enslaved in Egypt after growing too numerous. A baby boy who should have been thrown into a river is placed into a basket by his sister and raised by Pharaoh's daughter and called Moses. Thank you. Moses grows up, he learns his true identity, he flees to the desert after killing a guy, he gets married, basically half of the plot of DreamWorks' classic The Prince of Egypt happens in this week's Torah portion. But the very beginning of the portion, before Moses is born, actually describes a time of political change and upheaval. You see Joseph, where we finished off last week in Genesis. Joseph and all of his generation live quite a long time in Egypt, and they grow from a small tribe of 70 people into a great multitude of a nation. But after Joseph and all his generation die, we read the following, verse 8, chapter 1 of Exodus. We read, "And a new king arose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph." You can't make this up. That's what it says. It says, "A new king arose over Egypt." Now, when that king decides he needs to get smart with the Israelites and their growing numbers, he enslaves them to curb their growth. And when that doesn't quite work, well, we meet our first heroes in the book. No, it's not Moses yet. I'm talking about the brave women who made sure that Moses could be born and grow to the leader that the Israelites would need. You see, the real heroes of this Torah portion are women. Women who follow their moral compass instead of succumbing to cynicism and despair. Women who feared God and found a way to do the right thing and stand up for what is right, even in difficult and frightening times. These first two women's names were Shifra and Puah. They were the midwives. And after receiving the order to kill all the firstborn Hebrew boys, these brave women enact an act of civil disobedience out of fear of God, we read. And when they were asked why they hadn't been killing those firstborn children as Pharaoh had ordered, they cleverly shifted the focus. They said, "Oh, those Hebrew women, they're not like the Egyptians. Whenever we get to them, they call us that they're giving birth, and then whoops, they've already given birth. They're just too quick for us." These women heed their moral compass. They find a way to fear their eternal king more than any human king. And that doesn't stop with those two. We see and meet another woman, Moses' mother, Yocheved, who hides this infant for 3 months. Now imagine that for a second. Newborn children are contraband, and she found a way to hide this child who presumably cried like any other child, who presumably made all sorts of noises like any other child for 3 whole months. Just that he might have a chance to live a life and survive. And then it's Miriam, his sister, We know she becomes a prophet, but her first act of courage is actually sending out her brother in a basket into the river. And then we meet a fifth brave woman, all before Moses ever says a word. That's Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter who sees this basket, who opens it up, who finds a child inside, and instead of killing him, she raises him as her own. These women give me hope. They remind me that perhaps one of the most important messages in this Torah portion is that in times of political change, we have to make sure to listen to our moral compass. We have to make sure to find a way to fear God, so to speak, and find that right thing to do even when we might not know what it is quite yet. So no matter how you feel about our 45th president, or how you felt about our 44th for that matter, as Jews we inherit this story of people who defied earthly powers to listen to something higher, to listen to something greater. We are the descendants of a tradition that demands that we listen to that compass as we navigate the turbulent waters of time and progress. As we move forward, I pray tonight that we will each find the spirit of Shifra, the spirit of Puah, the spirit of Yocheved and Miriam, and yes, the spirit of the daughter of Pharaoh within each of us. I pray that we all follow those moral compasses the way they did, whether we do so out of fear of God or love of humankind or for any other reason. I pray that we find a way to follow that spirit that guides us. Shabbat Shalom.